September 14th, 1968. Central Highlands of South Vietnam, Con Tum Province. The rain has stopped, but the jungle is still breathing. Steam rises from the elephant grass as 6 men lie pressed into the mud along a ridgeline no wider than a city sidewalk. Their uniforms are darkened with sweat and rainwater, faces streaked in camouflage paint that no longer looks deliberate, just smeared survival. Leeches cling to bootlaces, ants crawl over rifle stocks. No one moves to brush them away. Staff Sergeant Robert "Red" Mallory, team leader, lifts 2 fingers slowly. Not a command, just awareness. Ahead, somewhere downslope, the jungle has gone quiet in a way that doesn't happen naturally. No birds, no insects. Even the cicadas have shut up. 6 men, always 6. Mallory counts them without looking. Point man PFC Danny Ruiz, barely 20, M16 angled forward, eyes never blinking. To Ruiz's right, SP4 Tom Hargreaves, radio operator, PRC-25 handset wrapped in poncho liner to keep the rain out. Behind them, Sergeant Bill Crow, assistant team leader, carrying the M79 grenade launcher, the one weapon that can turn a bad contact into a survivable one. Then SP4 Leonard Doc Kaplan, medic, extra bandages taped to his web gear because there's no medevac guarantee out here. Finally, rear security, PFC James O'Neill, quiet, methodical, watching the trail they crossed an hour ago as if the jungle itself might follow. 6 men moving like one organism, breathing on the same rhythm. This is a long-range reconnaissance patrol, an LRRP team from the 4th Infantry Division. Their mission isn't to fight. It's to see without being seen, to confirm enemy movement along a suspected North Vietnamese army infiltration route cutting through the borderlands of Laos and Cambodia. If they're detected, they're already dead. Mallory eases his body forward an inch at a time. The ground here is soft, good for noise discipline, bad for scent. He knows that. The enemy trackers know it too. Everything in this war leaves a signature, and that is why there are 6 of them, not 5, not 8, never a platoon. 6 is the smallest number that lets a team survive contact, injury, pursuit, and extraction, sometimes all in the same hour. Mallory signals Crow, 2 fingers, then a clenched fist. Freeze. Crow nods, barely perceptible. The team halts. No one shifts weight. No one swallows. Time stretches until it loses meaning. In Vietnam, the jungle doesn't care how brave you are, it only cares how many mistakes you make. A larger team would already be dead. With 10 or 12 men, someone would have snapped a twig. A boot heel would have slid, sweat would drip onto leaves. More men mean more sound, more heat, more disturbed foliage, more tracks, more chance that a Viet Cong trail watcher, hidden, patient, invisible, would notice something wrong. 6 men can disappear. Mallory learned that lesson years earlier during training at Fort Benning, when instructors drilled it into them until it stopped being theory. Recon patrols weren't assault units. They weren't rangers kicking in doors or air cav riding in on Hueys. LRRPs were shadows, designed to operate days behind enemy lines with no support, no artillery, no guarantee of rescue. Every extra body increased the odds of compromise, but fewer than 6? That was suicide of a different kind. Mallory remembers the after-action report from a 1967 patrol that went in with 4 men. Too light, too confident. 1 man wounded by a booby trap, 1 stuck providing security, 1 treating the casualty. That left 1 rifle watching the jungle. The NVA had followed them for hours. No one came back. 6 men means 2 can maneuver, 2 can provide security, 1 can communicate, 1 can treat the wounded, and the team still functions. It's redundancy without bulk. Ahead, Ruiz slowly raises a clenched fist. Enemy sign. Mallory slides forward until he can see it too. Boot prints, fresh, sharp-edged, not yet softened by rain. North Vietnamese Army sandals, at least a squad, maybe more. Moving north. The information alone is worth the risk. Mallory motions Kaplan back, then taps Hargreaves. Radio check, but silent. No transmission yet. They will wait. Confirm direction, count numbers. 6 men can split their attention without losing control. 1 watches the trail, 1 scans the flanks, 1 watches the rear, 1 tracks time, 1 tracks distance, 1 makes decisions. That balance, stealth, security, redundancy, is the reason 6-man LRRP teams became doctrine, not preference. It wasn't written in manuals first, it was written in blood, in patrols that vanished, in radio calls that ended mid-sentence, in helicopters that arrived to empty clearings. Mallory feels the jungle shift again. Somewhere ahead, a branch moves that shouldn't. He tightens his grip on the rifle. 6 shadows, alone in enemy country, holding their breath as the war inches closer. The movement resolves itself, a single North Vietnamese soldier stepping carefully onto the trail, scanning, listening. He pauses, then continues. No alarm raised. The jungle exhales. Only when the sound fades does Mallory ease his shoulders down. He doesn't look back. He doesn't have to. 6 men are still exactly where they should be. This balance wasn't accidental. It was learned the hard way years before Mallory ever set foot in Vietnam. In 1965, when the first LRRP units were stood up, the Army didn't have clean answers. Early patrols went in heavy, 8, 10, sometimes 12 men. Commanders thought numbers meant safety. They were wrong. In the Central Highlands, larger patrols started leaving signatures everywhere, crushed undergrowth, broken vines, multiple boot sizes overlapping, trails that looked like someone had dragged a rope through the jungle. Viet Cong scouts didn't need to see the patrol, they just needed to follow the disturbance. Mallory remembers an instructor at Benning, Vietnam veteran, face like old leather, drawing lines in the dirt with a stick. "Every man you add," he said, "is another mouth breathing, another heart beating, another mistake waiting to happen." By 1966, after enough patrols were compromised, doctrine began to harden. 6 men became the standard, not because it sounded neat, but because it worked, most often. 2-man buddy teams were the core, 1 moved, 1 watched. With 6 men, the patrol could break into 3 overlapping pairs, rotating roles without ever leaving a blind spot. Forward security, flank security, rear security. At no point was the team exposed. In the jungle, exposure meant death. Mallory learned to think in arcs, not directions. Every man owned a slice of the world. If one slice went dark, wounded, exhausted, overloaded, the others could compensate. That redundancy mattered when things went wrong, which they always did. Hargreaves shifts slightly, adjusting the antenna wire woven through his rucksack straps. The PRC-25 is dead weight until it isn't. When it matters more than any rifle. But radios add noise, batteries add weight. The operator becomes a liability if the team gets chased. 6 men allows 1 to carry that burden without crippling the patrol. Mallory glances at Kaplan. The medic has already marked landmarks in his head. If someone steps on a punji stake or catches a fragment, Kaplan will need space, security, time. 4 men can't provide that. 8 men draw attention. 6 is the narrow bridge between care and concealment. The trail ahead bends left. Mallory signals. Crow shifts, M79 angled down, thumb resting near the trigger. 1 high explosive round could turn the jungle into chaos, but firing it would mean the mission is over. Extraction under fire. Aircraft delayed. Enemy closing in. LRRPs weren't meant to win fights. They were meant to survive information. The North Vietnamese understood this too. They organized their own recon elements, lean, quiet, patient. The jungle rewarded those who respected it. Mallory thinks back to a patrol report he once read from a unit that tried 5-man teams to cut weight. It worked until it didn't. 1 man twisted an ankle, another had to help him. Security collapsed from 3 sectors to 2. When contact came, there was nowhere to move without exposing someone. 6 men creates elasticity. It bends without breaking. A bird suddenly erupts from the brush to Mallory's left. Every muscle tightens, but it's nothing, just jungle life reclaiming the silence. Still, he notes it. Animals notice things before humans do. A spooked bird can mean a patrol is about to be discovered. He shifts the team 10 meters upslope, slow, deliberate. Each man waits for the one ahead to settle before moving. A 6-man element can flow like this, compact enough to remain unseen, large enough to adapt. By the late years of the war, this structure had spread across LRRP units, ranger companies, and Special Forces recon teams. Not because officers loved rules, but because patrol leaders demanded it. Mallory's unit didn't argue doctrine. They lived it. Ahead, the trail opens into a narrow clearing. Dangerous. Mallory halts the team again. He divides them mentally, 2 eyes forward, 2 watching flanks, 1 rear, 1 command. 6 roles, constantly rotating, never overlapping too much, never leaving gaps. If they survive tonight, the report will be brief. Coordinates, direction of movement, estimated strength, no medals, no headlines, just 6 men walking out the same way they walked in. The jungle doesn't give them that courtesy. It starts with a sound that doesn't belong, a metallic click, too sharp to be a bird, too deliberate to be chance. Mallory's hand snaps up in a fist, but it's already too late. A punji pit yawns open beneath Ruiz's left foot, the bamboo spikes hidden just well enough to bite. Ruiz goes down hard, biting off a scream. Blood darkens the mud instantly, contact without gunfire, the worst kind. Crow and O'Neill are already moving, rifles sweeping, eyes wide, fingers tight on triggers. Kaplan is on Ruiz in seconds, hands steady despite the chaos. Hargreaves drops to a knee, antenna wire slack, ready to transmit if Mallory gives the word. 6 men. This is why. Mallory's brain snaps into structure, 2 security forward, 2 security rear and flank, 1 medic, 1 command, and radio control. The jungle hasn't erupted yet, which means they still have a chance to stay invisible. Kaplan works fast, cutting cloth, checking for venom, snapping bamboo shards. A deeper team, 8, 10 men, would already be shifting, whispering, breathing too loud. A smaller team wouldn't have enough eyes on the jungle. Mallory signals silence. No radio. Not yet. Minutes stretch. Kaplan finishes a pressure wrap. Ruiz is pale but conscious. He nods once. He can move. The team contracts tighter, smaller than before. Ruiz goes in the middle now, supported but not slowed. Their shape changes, but it holds. 6 allows reconfiguration under stress. They move again. That's when the jungle answers. A single shot cracks from the tree line, snapping over their heads. Not a spray. Not panic fire. A probe. The enemy knows something is here now, just not what. Mallory drops flat, pointing. Crow angles the M79, but waits. O'Neill has already slid back 10 meters, guarding their spoor. Hargreaves mouths a question. Radio? Mallory shakes his head. 6 men can break contact without fighting. Any more, and someone fires. Any less, and someone gets cut off. The second shot doesn't come. Instead, they hear movement. Careful. Patient. The enemy is testing, tracking, trying to decide whether this is a patrol or something bigger. That hesitation is the team's lifeline. Mallory makes the call, hand signals ripple down the line, displacement drill, 2 move, 4 hold, then 2 hold, 4 move. The jungle swallows them in segments, never exposing the whole. This is why LRRP doctrine survived the war. Because when contact came, and it always did, the 6-man team didn't collapse. It flexed. They disappear into the trees just as voices drift into the clearing they abandoned. Vietnamese. Calm. Confident. Hunters who arrived minutes too late. Kaplan glances at Ruiz, then back at Mallory. Everyone understands what just happened. If this had been a larger element, they'd still be fighting. If it had been smaller, they'd be dead. 6 men leave no room for heroics, only survival. Hours later, soaked, exhausted, leeches fat with blood, the team halts again. Far from the trail, far from pursuit. Hargreaves finally transmits. Short burst, coordinates, 1 casualty. Mission continuing. Mallory leans against a tree, eyes closed for 3 seconds. Never more. 6 men, alive, invisible again. That is the real reason LRRPs always operated this way. Not because 6 sounded neat on paper, but because 6 was the smallest number that could walk into hell, step on a trap, meet the enemy, and still walk out. Dawn comes without ceremony. A pale gray light filters through the canopy as Mallory's team lies motionless in a hide site scraped into the side of a hill. No fire, no movement, no sound beyond breathing controlled so tightly it almost disappears. Ruiz sleeps in short bursts, boot off, foot wrapped, pain kept at bay by discipline more than medicine. The night passed without pursuit. That alone confirms the decision-making. The enemy never got a clean count, never heard sustained fire, never saw enough movement to commit forces. To them, this could have been anything, a lone scout, a small element passing through, even animals. The uncertainty saved 6 lives. This was the quiet victory no one wrote about. By 1969, the 6-man LRRP team was no longer debated. It had become instinct. Ranger units that replaced LRRPs inherited the same structure. So did Special Forces recon elements operating across the fence in Laos and Cambodia. Different patches, same math. 6 men could stay hidden for days. 6 men could split into security and action. 6 men could carry a wounded teammate without collapsing the perimeter. 6 men could be lost and still recovered without the team disintegrating. Mallory watches the jungle wake up again. Birds return first, then insects. Life resumes where violence paused. The war doesn't care that they survived the night, but the jungle seems to accept it. Extraction is still hours away. They'll move only when the shadows are right, when the air settles again. 6 men will rise, melt into the terrain, and walk toward a pickup zone that exists only as coordinates in a radio log. Back at base, the debrief will be clinical. No drama, no mention of fear. Just confirmation, enemy movement, grid references, estimated strength. Another invisible thread added to the larger picture of the war. But among LRRP veterans, the understanding will remain unspoken. Team size wasn't about comfort or command preference. It was about control. Control of sound, control of movement, control of chaos when plans broke. Too many men and control slipped away. Too few, and there wasn't enough left to hold the line. 6 was the number that allowed leaders like Mallory to think instead of react, to choose silence over fire, movement over panic, survival over glory. As the team prepares to move, Mallory signals the order without urgency. They know it already. Each man checks the one ahead. Each man covers the one behind. 6 shadows again, stretching into the jungle. Years later, long after the war ends, that number will still follow them. In training manuals, in ranger lineage, in stories told quietly between men who learned what worked because everything else failed. The jungle taught them. 6 was the number that came home.